Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us. How is your Memorial weekend starting off? Or how's it wrapping up, depending on when you're listening to the show? Kind of a big weekend in the outdoors, isn't it? Unofficial kickoff of the summer season. Pretty cool time of year. I don't know if you're going to be out barbecuing or grilling or camping or fishing or working on food plots or whatever, but many of us have a 3-day weekend. Time to take advantage of what our great state has to offer. You know, to a lot of people, Memorial Weekend is just, again, it's a third day off. It's a reason to get out and have fun. The real reason, let's think about the real reason behind Memorial Day. Originally, I think it was called Decoration Day. And the thought was to decorate the graves of those who had given their lives in service of our country. And that's still the real technical meaning. I shouldn't say technical. That's still the real meaning of Memorial Day today. Honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving our country and protecting us. The people who didn't sit back and watch. The people who either were drafted, enlisted, whatever, but ended up in the service. They may have ended up overseas. They may have ended up on the water, in the desert, in a jungle, in a swamp somewhere. And they didn't come home. And they did that so we can enjoy the freedoms we do, the freedoms we have. I try to keep that in mind throughout this entire weekend. I've had a pretty good life. I've done some stupid things. I've made some mistakes. But overall, God has blessed me with a very, very good life. But I have one true regret. I never served in the military. I wish I would have. When I was a young guy, I wish I would have taken a couple of years out. Instead of jumping right into college, I wish I would have stepped up. I said, okay, I'll do it. Now, granted, this was shortly after Vietnam and things were looked at a little bit differently. That's no excuse. That's no excuse. But it was a different world then. But it's something I have regretted my entire life. One of the few true regrets I have in my life is that I never served. So the least I can do this weekend is to honor and remember those who did. Now, in my family, Memorial Weekend has become more than just a time to honor those who lost their lives in the service. It's become a time to honor family members who have gone on ahead before us. And in my mind right now, I am remembering those people, and I am honoring their memory. So what is going on? I said it is Memorial Weekend, 3-day weekend. Hopefully Mother Nature will cooperate as we are in the studio right now. It's an interesting morning. It went from 80 degrees overnight. The wind picked up. It's blowing like crazy. It's kind of chilly. Forecast looks like it's going to get nice, though. I think we're finally about due for some nice weather to continue on through the summer, huh? I'm pretty excited. I do have my new Angler Quest boat. An 85-26 Pro Troll with a 300-horse Mercury outboard on it. I went out to the Apex plant in St. Louis, Michigan. By the way, you should know that Angler Quest boats and Quest pontoons are built right here in Michigan. So I went to the Apex plant. I hooked onto the boat. I towed it up to Linwood Beach Marina on Saginaw Bay. It did make me realize, I got a pretty good-sized truck. It's only a half-ton, but it's a ZR2, and I got it lifted up, and I think it's a sharp truck. The guys at Garber hooked me up real nice. But I found out it's really not designed for towing heavy loads because this 26-foot Angler Quest made the back end of the truck squat pretty good. It did look nice, though, with that truck in front of the Angler Quest. People said, I posted a picture, people said, hey, you need air shocks back there. You need to raise the rear end of that truck. Yeah, if I was going to do any trailering at all, I would say certainly. But listen, once or twice every year or two, I make a 40-mile trip from the Apex plant over to Linwood Beach. That's the only towing I do, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I got the boat over to Linwood Beach. They needed to do some final tweaks on it. By that, I mean a water test. They needed to configure the autopilot. They had to put a prop on it, swap out the trolling motor, those types of things, minor things, but things that needed to be done before we could splash the Angler Quest. So as I'm sitting in the studio right now, the boat is ready to go, but Mother Nature is not. It is strong northeast winds out there. Tomorrow, Thursday, calls for strong northeast winds as well. Friday looks a little better. So by the time you hear this show, my plan is that I will have picked up the Angler Quest, run her across Saginaw Bay, got her into my slip at the marina near the mouth of the Saginaw River, and hopefully by the time the weekend is over, get 1 day of fishing in. The first day of fishing on that new Angler Quest on Saginaw Bay because the bite is on fire right now. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to take much advantage of it because very soon here now, and I have to think things through in my mind because we're doing some time shifting. We're actually recording 3 shows in a 2-week period to cover my Ontario bear trip. I ended up going to Ontario, or will go to Ontario, to White River, Ontario, to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, a place I've gone, a guy I've hunted with for close to 15 years now, probably 13, 14 years. And I love the August hunt. I love the mid-August hunt because it doesn't interfere with anything else. My fishing has slowed down by mid-August. There's not much else going on. And to me, it's a perfect time to get away, head north, and do a big game hunt, basically at the end of summer. Can't do that this year. My daughter Shelby's getting married at the end of summer. So I had to move everything up a little bit. So as a result, I'm going up there for their spring hunt. This is something they opened up here a few years ago, reopened a few years ago. So I'm going up there for the spring hunt. I'm looking forward to it, but I can't think of a worse week to be gone from fishing Saginaw Bay walleye than the first week of June. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. So I will be going to White River, Ontario. I'm thinking that the first respectable bear that walks in front of me is probably going to get an arrow through the ribs, through the pump station if I'm making a good shot. And then I'll turn right back around and come back here with a couple coolers full of bear meat and ready to get fishing again. All right, so what else is going on right now? Have you seen whitetail fawns? There are a bunch of fawns out there right now. It is the whitetail fawning period. That means whitetail does are dropping, i.e. having their babies, their fawns, and you'll see them all over the place. They are a very cute, very cuddly looking, very adorable critter, and it is so hard. If you find a newborn whitetail fawn, they're beautiful. And a lot of people just want to walk over and pick them up and cuddle them, and some people say, I got to take it home. It's abandoned. That fawn is not abandoned. Don't pick that fawn up. For one thing, it's illegal. It is illegal to pick up a whitetail fawn. I think it's also immoral and unethical. Again, if you find a whitetail fawn that you think has been stashed or abandoned, it hasn't been. That's the way Mother Nature works. The does will stash those fawns until they get a couple weeks old where they can get up and run. She will stash those fawns. Mother Nature teaches them to be quiet and not run. She'll come back a couple times a day to nurse them, to feed them, and then she'll leave them again. They're not abandoned. If you find one, yes, take a picture. But don't sneak up to it. Don't try to touch it. Don't get in there real close. Don't screw everything up by leaving your scent all over the place. And no, it's not abandoned. And you know what? Even if the fawn was, okay, I'll take this one step further. If you find a dead doe that got hit on the side of the road and it's a fresh accident, and she gives birth to that fawn while you're sitting there as the last thing that she does, so you know the fawn is being abandoned, still don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. Well, I just want to make sure it lives. Are you doing that wild animal a favor by taking it to a rehabilitator? An animal that's supposed to live wild and free, that sounds corny. Have you done it any favors by taking it to somebody who's going to raise it in a barn? Honestly, I can't see any reason ever to pick up a whitetail fawn, and I would encourage you not to do it. Coming up after the break here on Outdoor Magazine, we're going to talk a little fishing with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters. His website, senditcharters.com, senditcharters.com. Jason works out of the Linwood Beach Marina. Their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. We want to talk about the fantastic, and yeah, I'm using that word intentionally, the very good walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay right now. I unfortunately have not been out there yet, but I will be soon. We're going to talk about some of his techniques on how to find fish, how to catch fish, how to rig a boat, and some advice to help make you a better angler as well. That's coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. You know, you can hear the show on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by, who's it brought to? Let's go to Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946, back when Roland Boning invented ferrultite. Now, I don't know if you've heard of ferrultite or not, but it was a substance, a compound, a glue to attach broadheads to what at the time were wooden arrow shafts and aluminum arrow shafts. These days, thank you, John, Boning continues to innovate and come up with new products for archers and bow hunters. Check them out online at this website, boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. You know, I talked about those affiliates. They include WZTK in Alpena, that's 105.7 FM. You can also hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. I was telling you that I picked up the new Angler Quest. I put it behind my Garber Chevy, and I took it over to Linwood Beach Marina. And when I got there was a guy standing there. He had a big smile on his face. And he says, "Hey, how can I help you?" And the guy's name is Jason Graham. Now, I know Jason from Send It Charters. He is a charter captain, a fishing guide on Saginaw Bay. The website for that side of his business is senditcharters.com, senditcharters.com. But you can see him when he's not on the water, often at Linwood Beach Marina, and their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. And I wanted to talk with Jason about several topics, and it just so happens he's got a blow day today, and he can't be on the water, so he agreed to spend some time with us. And Jason Graham, I appreciate it. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Well, I'm doing great. As I look out the window, I'm kind of glad we're both on shore today, Cap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking out the window here, and it's that northeaster blew in, and our launch docks are underwater this morning. The water's up 2.5 feet from yesterday. It's definitely not a day you want to be in the water today for sure.
Isn't it crazy how the weather this spring has been just kind of weird, hasn't it?
It's been extremely weird for me as well. One day you have nice days, it's a foot chop and the walleye biting's great and a lot of fishing going on. The next day it's snowing. I mean, it's from one extreme to the next. So.
And has that affected the fishing? Now, obviously, I haven't been out there. I'm getting a late start this year, but I hear nothing but good reports.
Good reports, a lot of great reports. The captains here in the marina are all catching fish at a steady rate. It all depends where the fish have moved from the day before or the week before. If they have a blow day or two, these fish will congregate together but move around a little bit. but usually they're at a mile or two from where they were a couple days ago. But the fishing's outstanding right now. The water has warmed up quite a few degrees with the warm days we're having. We're at mid-50s yesterday when we were out, and the fishing's incredible right now.
All right, let me ask you a stupid question. You get a big northeast blow on Saginaw Bay. It's a shallow body of water. Does that push those fish up towards shore after a big blow? Will you find them tight up in the skinny water?
Yes and no. It all depends on if there's any the stain goes with it. You know, there's a difference between a stained water and muddy water. Muddy water is great for the fish. It's bad for the fishermen. You get a stained water, a tea-looking color. And when I say tea, you can look down and see your prop shaft and see your prop spinning. That's about the visibility you're looking for a great fishery, a great day to be on the water. If you get down where you can't see 3 inches in the water, you're going to mark fish on your graph, but it's extremely hard to catch. But as far as the winds, though, these fish do one of two things. Usually they feed into the wind. No different than current being on a river. All these fish point the nose into the wind or nose in the current and kind of feed that way. So if we get a northeaster, these fish might leave as well and head out to deeper water because that current is blowing in their face. It also will push them. It'll also push some of the warmer cold water in. The warm water will be in there first. And then when that cold water hits, it pushes it back out. So now that shoreline, like today, we got 40-mile winds now. It's going to push the cold water in and cool down the shoreline. Instead of pushing the warm water in first, it pushes the cold water in first. And these fish will actually sometimes they'll leave it. But it's one of the things where we have to go out and test the waters. So if we get a blow day like this, our network of captains will go out and say, okay, I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to go this way, and you're going to go this way, and we'll reconvene about 8:30, 9 o'clock and say, hey, how's your bite going? And then we can actually chat with each other to get these customers that are on board all these boats that are on charter boats and get these guys on fish by the end of the afternoon.
That intel, that's invaluable, isn't it? Having that many people out there going different directions.
Yeah, it's priceless. It's one of the things where, you get a network of captains, you all work together. We're all in this for the same thing, keep our customers happy and bring customers back to business and bring them back to our local area is what we're trying to do. As long as they have a good time, they're going to come back. And it's one of them deals where, if the customer's happy, we're all happy. It makes everything go better for everybody involved.
I'm still hung up on your comment that these fish will feed into the current, like in a river. Okay, on Saginaw Bay there, if we get our midsummer beautiful southwest breeze, I'm thinking, okay, so if the wind's coming from the southwest, these fish are pointed to the southwest. Does that mean you would start your troll in and work northeast, so you're trolling into their face?
That is correct.
No
That's correct.
kidding.
That's why you'll find some days the bite's better with the wind than against the wind. We call it going with the wind or going uphill. Those two directions are pretty much the best two ways to fish Saginaw Bay. You will have guys that fish the troughs and fish sideways, and that's great. Sometimes they'll bite that way too. But the difference on Saginaw Bay is we're all going the same direction or the opposite direction, kind of like a two-way road. One's going uphill, one's going downhill. When you start going cross directions, like on a flat day, they'll bite every direction. It doesn't seem to matter. But when we have a day that's either a 1-foot chop or 2-foot chop, everybody will go uphill, go upwind, and fish down with the wind. A couple reasons. One is you have better boat control. Mm-hmm. It's easier to contain the boards. The wind's easier on you. It's easier on your customers, everybody on board. Even if the pleasure boaters are out fishing, it's easier on everybody on board. But also the bite seems to be better because those fish are pointed into your lures as they go by.
Yeah, you talk about fishing the trough. Man, everybody gets caught in that trough once in a while, but it's not a place you want to be. Even on an angler quest, you just don't want to be there.
Correct. You're basically doing a turn. You've got your autopilot set. You do it through just a few minutes trying to get the boards turned around and go back uphill. Once you go uphill into the waves, it's easier. You're running into them. The boat can handle that, and then the boards can handle it, and it's just easier for patrol. Or you pull your lines up, run back in, and do it again. There's two versions of it, but it all depends on how hard that chop is. With the angler quest like yours, you can go into a 2-foot chop pretty easy as long as the outboard will handle it and the autopilot will control it. You can still do that, but a lot of guys prefer to pull lines, go back upwind, and do that same troll again down with the wind.
Well, I'm one of them. Look, the boat can handle it, but I would just soon, if I don't, unless I've got like 12, 14 rods out, I just soon pull them, run back up into it, and troll downwind.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about your business a little bit, Jason. How did you get started in this? How did you decide you wanted to be a captain, and what was that process for you?
I've been fishing since I was a kid. I started on a little farm pond as a kid and loved fishing. I'd get off the school bus and run to the house, throw the books, and grab the fishing rods and head out fishing. I did that all my high school days into college. Back in the day, the TV channel I had on was Bassmasters TV, and I wanted to be a bass fisherman. So that's what I did. I got out of college. I decided to buy my first bass boat. I was working at J Sporting at the time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, back in 95, 96, 97, that was actually my first job there with J Sporting Goods. Actually I was a bow mechanic for the first part of the season, and then I turned into a going to the gun department. We call it a floater. So if you had the knowledge for each department, you went where the busy season was. So it was archery, then guns, and fishing. And then when I got the fishing department, it was all little bass club started with a $10 Monday night club. That's where the tournaments got started. I fished an 11-foot boat with a trolling motor on the front, and I took third place in my first tournament, and it stuck from there. So I got into bass fishing, got into boats, bass boats, and fished bigger and bigger, and fished a couple FLW events, fished Everstarts events all over the country. I've been all over the country fishing the major bass tournaments that I can. Got to the point where traveling for me was being on the road was just too much with my workload that I had and trying to have a family life at home. So I decided let's do something different. So it's been 7 years now. I decided to get my captain's license and let's fish for a living and stay close to home every night. So
Nice.
That's what I'm doing now.
Well, you've come a long way from that 11-footer. That rig you're running these days is pretty much state of the art, isn't it?
Absolutely, I got all the bells and whistles needed. It's probably overkill for what I do, but each tool on that boat is what I used to make my customers the most comfortable as possible and have the best day in the water. And I get to the point now where I'm teaching a lot of techniques. Why I change my hooks on my crankbaits, why I use braided line, why the offshore boards are the ones I use, and why we use the offshore releases that I use compared to the line I use. So it's more of a teaching method now. Like I said, I tell my customers now, none of us were born knowing the information we have. Once you have the information, and I've got it in my mind now how I do things, it's my turn to teach it and pass it on to everybody else that wants to learn. So.
Jason, I believe there is no such thing as overkill when it comes to hunting and fishing toys.
Well, I get a good point, but there also is, the bank account, he has to settle down too,
Yeah. Well, listen, let's talk about your techniques a little bit. You have become known as a guy who is intense is not the word, but what is the word I'm searching for? I mean, you do things in a very, very precise way, don't you?
Technical. I'm very technical
yes,
about
yes.
the way I do things. The way I rig my rods and the way I calibrate my reels. I run a 300-foot piece of braided line at the end of my rods because that's all the line that's in the water. The rest of the reel just got backing on it. But when I calibrate my reels out to 100 foot, they read 100 foot every time. So when I put those baits out, and let's say I got one particular bait that's 37 back and catching my fish, I want to be able to duplicate that as many times as possible to fill that boat as fast as possible. That's my goal is to fill that boat and have time to get back maybe an hour early, 2 hours early, and take a nap or do something else with my day, and get these guys on my customers on fish as fast as possible and get them in the boat. So.
Well, if you don't calibrate that reel, you're still going to be close, right? I mean, at 100 feet, you might be off 2 or 3 feet. Is that enough to make a difference, really?
Well, and most people think that, but they're actually off. I've had a couple situations where guys have the reels, and I've grabbed the rod, say, we need to check your calibration on this. And I've had actually a customer here come in and had a reel, and I put it on a tape measure, it read 147.
And you
reel said 147 at 100 foot.
Ooh, yeah, so okay.
If you reel that reel down to where the rod says, or the reel says 100 now, it was 60 foot on a tape measure. So now you're 40 foot off at 100 foot. Now you're talking your bait might be 6-7 feet different in the water column.
Yeah.
It's not even in the vicinity of where the fish are at.
Wow, that's interesting. We're talking with Jason. Go ahead. Well, listen, Jason, hang tight. We got to take a break here. We'll continue this conversation after the break. We're talking with Jason Graham of Send It Charters. His website is senditcharters.com, senditcharters.com. Jason works out of and works with the folks at Linwood Beach Marina. Their website is linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. I can't say enough about Jason and the folks at Linwood Beach. They've really helped me out the last couple of days, and I appreciate it. We will take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more with Jason about this concept of calibrating your reels. How do you do it? He's got some interesting techniques that he has come up with there that are a little bit different than some of the other captains out there. And he brought up offshore. I love offshore. I run their OR12s 90% of the time. But the question I have is, how do you configure those boards? Do you run the clips that come with the boards, or do you swap them out? And here's the question. Do you put the longest leads on the outside of your spread or the inside? So those questions and more with Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com, working out of Linwood Beach Marina, linwoodbeachmarina.com, right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Paddle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your mid-Michigan tracker and polar craft and angler quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Linwood Beach, great facilities, great location, great people. And one of those people is Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. His website, senditcharters.com. That's senditcharters.com. Cap, before the break, a couple of things you brought up I want to follow up on. Number one, what is the process of calibrating your reel? How do you do that?
The reels that I use all have a line counter on them, and most people out there think that is the footage of the line that goes out. Well, that is incorrect. It's actually the revolutions of the reel. So to make the revolutions of the reel and the line match, you have to it's called calibrating. So what I do is fill the reel where I think the reel is full, and then I'll take that spool. I don't cut the line yet. I just take the spool, and I have an offshore release clip hooked to the end of my 100-foot tape measure I lay out in the yard. At that point, clip the line on, zero the line counter out, and walk out to 100 foot with a rod tip. If that rod tip gets to 100 foot and the line counter says 90, that means there's too much line on that reel. If it says 110, there's not enough line on the reel. It's just opposite of what you think. Mm-hmm. The difference being is there's different manufacturers, the different reel manufacturers have different gear ratios in these reels. On the Shimanos that I use, I am 8 to 12 feet, depending on line diameter, off per foot of line. So for every foot of line I'm off, I have to strip off 8 or 12 feet of line to make that line counter read 1 foot. On some Diawoods that we have in the area that's calibrated for some people, they are 25 feet off per 1 foot on the line counter. So a 12-pound test per se, if you walk out and it says 102, that is 50 feet off on that line counter. It's 50 feet of line, not enough. So the line calibration is very critical to have conversations with your buddies, to have conversations at the boat ramp, to have conversations, hey, I'm 50 back. Well, you might be 50 back, what your line counter says, but if you're actually 50 feet, you have no idea where that bait is if you're trying to duplicate it several times on your boat.
All right, so you spend all this time to get these things dialed in, calibrated perfectly, and then you spend a day on Saginaw Bay and you have one huge, massive tangle, and you end up cutting a bunch of line off. That's going to screw you up.
It does. Then you have to go back to the drawing board. So one little trick I do with the guys, even the guys that run mono, I run braid myself, but the guys with mono, once you get that reel calibrated, once it's all set, ready to go, you get your swivel on, your bait's on, ready to go, I will take that reel out one more time, go to the 100-foot mark, I cut the line, and I mend that line back together with a double uni knot. So if you break that line anywhere from that knot to your swivel, anywhere in there, all you have to do is go back to that first knot, cut the line off, put 100 feet on it, put the swivel back on it, and you'll recalibrate it again back at 100 foot, the simplest way to do it. That one little knot in your line is not going to make a difference as far as going. It might catch a little bit as you pull off. You strip a line out once in a while to let a line out or retrieve a line, but at the end of the day, that 100-foot mark is already there. If you break it off at the board, you break it off at the fish, or right before the knot, all you have to do is walk out 100 foot, retie it, and you're fishing again.
Man, Jason, you've got it dialed in. This is impressive.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Offshore boards, the OR12s, are those the ones you're running? Are you running tattle flags?
I do. I run tattle flags. I don't need them personally, but my customers love them. Oh, they know it's like watching a tip up on the ice. Yes. That flag jumps up. They everybody knows on board there's a fish out when that flag goes down. Absolutely, it's a must-have on my boat for sure.
How do you configure those boards? Do you modify them, or do you take them right out of the package and run them that way?
If you're running mono, right out of the package for the tattle flag kits that are on them, they work just great. If you run mono. If you're going to run braid, there's several modifications I do to make it better so you can actually trip the board on the outsides or the insides of work. So I run a Sam's Pro Release that Offshore Tackle actually produces as well. They sell them under their brand name. And it's a flip-over release with a round knob on it, and that goes on the front of the board. What I do is with my braid, there's a rubber grommet on the face of that release, and what you do is you wrap it around that rubber grommet 5 times, snap it shut, and then go to the back of the board. On the back of my boards, I run an OR18, which is the flip snapper release, is what I run on the back of those. That way the braid will not come off the backboard after at least the front board. I'm running 7-8 boards a side on my boat, And if the outside board goes and you want to bring that fish in and not tangle the rest of them, I'll take my rod, I'll point at the rod, I'll point the rod out towards the rod, towards the board, and I'll bang the rod handle instead of actually like a set hook type motion. I don't do that at all. I point the rod at the board, I bang the handle, the vibration will trip that board, and the board will float back behind the boat, and the customers reel them in.
So
Won't tangle anything in between.
So your goal is, whether mono or braid, is you want to release that board and let it drop back out of the spread. That's the plan? Okay.
Correct. That is the plan for me, yes.
Oh, well, Jason, we got to take another break. You got a few more minutes for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Listen, after the break, one of the questions I'm going to have for you is regarding lead length. Don't answer it now, but be thinking about it. Do you run your longest leads on the outside or the inside? That's a discussion I have with a lot of people. We're talking with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, his website, senditcharters.com, senditcharters.com. He runs walleye trips on Saginaw Bay in the summertime. I think he goes to the west side and runs some late summer salmon trips as well. Jason works out of Linwood Beach Marina. Their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Linwood Beach is the place that I took my new Angler Quest. Once I picked it up from the factory at Apex, I took it to Linwood Beach to have them do some final tweaking. A water test, configure the autopilot. They had to put a prop on it, that type of thing, swap out the trolling motor. Jason Graham is actually the guy who did that for me, and I appreciate that very much. Also appreciate the folks at Linwood Beach Marina. Great facilities, great location, beautiful launch ramp. I mean, it is the place to be if you are walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay. Linwood Beach Marina is the place you want to be. LinwoodBeachMarina.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this first hour with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra, 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do, handmade by craftsmen in the UP with a lifetime guarantee. What more could you ask for? Go to their website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. You'll see what I mean. You can order them there. You can have them engraved. They'll sharpen them for the life of the knife. They're meant to be passed down to future generations. If you get a chance, go to their showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River. It's a beautiful experience, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I'm talking now with Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters on Saginaw Bay. His website, senditcharters.com. Now, I have a lot of friends at Linwood Beach Marina, captains there who are excellent charter captains. And I no disrespect to any of those guys. I work very closely with them all. I think they're top-notch people. But this time around, we're talking with Jason Graham of Send It Charters. Cap, before the break, you were talking about you run 7 boards aside sometime. These are the offshore OR-12s.
That is correct.
Here's the thing that beginning trollers struggle with. Do you run your outside boards with the longest lead or the shortest lead, or using your technique of releasing the board, does it even matter?
It matters to a certain extent, but I still run my shortest leads to the outside. Most of my times out here in Saginaw Bay, we're pretty shallow water, so I might have 3-4 foot difference in depth per lure per se. But the outside leads, let's say they're 40 back and they're 60 back next to the boat, that 20 foot does make a difference when you're tripping the boards and bringing them in behind the boat with fish on them for sure.
But again, one of the keys on this to minimize tangles, well, can you ever eliminate tangles? Are there days when you go out there and you say, hey, this was a pristine day, I didn't get one tangle, or is it bound to happen sometime?
It does happen now and again. A lot of times, and you know as well as I do, when you turn, a lot of times you get a bite on a turn. The bites slow down on the inside, the bites speed up on the outside. The inside baits, the boards are trying to pass each other. That rod goes back, and it's instinct to grab that rod and get reeling. Well, if you reel too fast, you just tangle the inside boards inside of that. It just happens. The baits start to float on the inside a little bit and raise up. But for the most part, a successful day for me is no tangles, no lost baits, and nobody bleeding at the end of the day. That's a successful day for me. So it typically ends up being me, with gills in the fingers and that kind of stuff, and pike and walleye teeth. I get a cut now and again, but that's part of doing battle on the bay. Especially you're putting 30 fish in the boat a day. It's bound to get a cut here and there in your fingers, and you're all scarred up. But you take it with a grain of salt, and off you go. Just keep running, going the next day.
And when the weather cooperates, you're running limits pretty much every time you go out right now, aren't you? I mean, the bay's on fire right now.
It's on fire right now. Yeah, it's a great fishery. A lot of times I'm done early. I was at 9:30 and yesterday, back to the dock by 9:30, left at 7. So, and that was 32 fish, 4 customers. So when you get them biting like that, it's mass chaos. It's just like a fire drill, one after another. My customers yesterday never sat down. We got to our first spot. We set rods. As the rods I'm setting rods. They never sat down for 2 hours. Just one fish after another. That's the fishery that we've all known about now and again. It's great. I just hope it stays this way for a long time.
All right, I'm not looking for lat longs. I'm not looking for honey holes. I'm not looking for coordinates. But what's your advice to somebody coming in from outside the area? They go to Linwood Beach. They launch at Linwood Beach. What direction, what depth of water, what baits? Get them started.
Right now, there's 3 big major pods of fish right now. There's a shallow bite going on. There's still some fish come up on the spawn. So there's fish in that 10, 12, 14-foot along the shorelines. There's also fish on the sailboat buoys. If you come into Linwood Beach Marina, you don't know what the sailboat buoys are, stop in our front counter. We have a piece of paper with all the coordinates on it that shows the sailboat buoys. All that is locations for the sail club to go out of the river and do their sailing, their yachting out of. But we use it for fish locations as well to help us out. The spark plugs on there, the black holes labeled. So if you hear those kind of terminology at the boat ramp or when you come to the dock and talk to us, those little areas, you have something in the GPS. Say, hey, I can get close to that just by the coordinates that are on this piece of paper. The shipping channel, the old shipping channel, all those areas, all these females and males are coming out of the river and off the reefs post spawn right now, and they're feeding everything they get their hands on. Number 9 minnows, number 7 minnows, number 7 flicker shads. Those seem to be the baits of choice right now. My favorable part is these fish, their number one prey on Saginaw Bay is a 3-inch perch. So if I can mimic a 3-inch perch in any way right now, whether it be a flicker shad, a flicker minnow, anything else of different brands, that's the number one forage of the 3-inch perch if you can find it. Bright colors on some days, more natural colors on some days. I mean, there's lots of areas, but the thing that a lot of people don't understand is you have to make sure you're on fish. You have to make sure your boat speed and make sure the fish are in the area, your depths are right before even worry about color. Color doesn't seem to matter when you get that pot of fish and your lures are the right depth and right boat speed. Color is the last thing I worry about when I do that. So.
One quick, very personal question. You asked me about my transducer yesterday. The way it was set from when I brought it there, was that not tilted forward enough or tilted forward too much?
The tilt was fine. It was just too high. So it'll read when you're sitting down off a plane. It'll read just fine. But there's no water going over top of the transducer on plane. So it needs to be lowered about 2 to 3 inches. I've already got that taken care of for a boat ride yesterday. I have to do it one more time.
Perfect. All right, Jason, listen, I appreciate that. Appreciate your time, and good fishing to you. Captain Jason Graham of Send It Charters, senditcharters.com. Senditcharters.com. That's his website. He works out of Linwood Beach Marina. Their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Great people, great facilities, and the bite on Saginaw Bay right now is hot, hot, hot. I don't expect to get much of a chance to take advantage of that before heading north on my Ontario bear hunt. I'm hoping this hot bite continues. We know the fishing will be good into the summer. I'm jonesing to get out there and take advantage of it. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show for the top of the hour. When we come back in hour number 2, we're talking about summertime coyote hunting. We're talking about clear cutting and this week's Ask Avery question right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, this is first and foremost a radio show. It is recorded, it is produced, it is syndicated, it is distributed as a radio show. A 3-hour weekly radio show talking about the history and tradition of the great outdoors here, primarily in the great state of Michigan. Hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues. Try to stay away from the politics, although occasionally politics does get involved in the content of the show, only as far as hunting and fishing issues. And we wrap up each week's show with some wild game cooking. I make the distinction about this being a radio show because I think in some ways that makes this a unique program. There aren't many statewide, syndicated, strictly outdoor radio shows, even in the country these days. There are a lot of podcasts. Believe me, there are a lot of podcasts, and I think podcasting is a great form of communication. In fact, I would encourage you to take a look at podcasting. If you have something that you want to talk about, if you have a story to tell, if you have some expertise, if you have some questions, podcasting is an easy way to get involved in the outdoor media. It's inexpensive, you don't need a lot of technology, and it's very, very easy. But I'm a broadcaster, and I think the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM radio station. If you can't, if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast version of the show as a backup? You can hear the podcast on my website. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page. Oh, man, I put it on Amazon, Audible, Twitter even, although who does Twitter? LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Odyssey, and even YouTube. And I know there are a lot of other places that carry the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show I'm not even aware of. As I say, though, I am a big fan of podcasting, and each month I do podcasts for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Polar Craft Boats, and when we're done in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Primal Outdoors podcast as well. So keep an ear out for that. Regardless of how you're hearing my voice, when you're hearing my voice, thank you. It does mean a lot to me. I wouldn't be able to do this as long as I have without your support. I don't plan on retiring soon. I realize God's plans are not necessarily my plans, but my plans are to stay here at this microphone promoting the outdoors and sharing the outdoors with you, and I appreciate the opportunity. So what is going on in your world this Memorial weekend? A lot of things you could be doing, right? Maybe you're still out chasing morels. Maybe you're working on food plots. Maybe you're doing some fishing. I would say the odds are slim that you're out there doing some predator hunting right now, some coyote hunting. I used to think of coyote hunting as a fall and wintertime activity, but the more I learn about it and the more true experts I talk with about this, I'm finding out if you are truly a hardcore predator hunter and you truly want to knock down that predator population, that summertime is not a bad time to be out there. Chris Kreiner is one of those guys who chases dogs. By dogs, I don't mean domestic dogs, song dogs, coyotes, year-round, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Chris, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you inviting me back. I'm doing fine.
Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to talk with somebody who has the expertise that you do on any given topic. Tell me about your journey into predator hunting, because your background, if I go to your website, ckreinermedia.com, your background in the outdoors started when you were just a kid. But how did you get to the point where you are today?
Well, as you know, I started with a lot of outdoor videography, actually, to dating back to the 2008, 2009. In years and years of doing that, I kind of learned and jumped into the photography side of things. And I've, up until probably 2016, 2017, I was a diehard whitetail guy. I loved deer hunting. I would shoot my bow all summer long. But then December 2016 is when the DNR and NRC passed the center fire at night law. And by January 2017, I got the rifle. I started with red lights from Night Snipe Hunting Lights, based right there out of Attica, Michigan, and jumped into the field. And I'll tell you, starting out, I'd always predator hunted. I've been predator hunting for close to 30 years now, daytime hunting. And your rate of success is considerably lower when you're hunting them during the day. So when I jumped into the nighttime game, I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. And though we did not see that many coyotes, and we did not shoot that many coyotes, I think by when I say we, I had a couple other buddies that I was out hunting on a regular basis with. We still just absolutely enjoyed it. We had a great time. We were hunting a couple times a week, and I think we ended up with like 3 or 4 coyotes that first year. Again, we were hunting with lights, so you don't really see everything that's coming in at you. But we had a great time, and it just kind of snowballed from there with improved technology, improved calling tactics, and even the callers and the audio files available today have greatly improved with the recordings of real coyotes, real rabbit distress, instead of using a reed howler or a rabbit distress call that you blow in and add that your own sounds and emotions to. That's all in an electronic caller now, so it makes things much easier.
So has predator hunting, coyote hunting, is that replaced deer hunting for you? Do you still hunt deer in the fall? Or are you a hardcore predator hunter now and that's it?
I'm pretty much hardcore predator hunter. My family does. We enjoy venison. So usually 1 or 2 deer a year fills my freezer and provides us venison for the following season. And honestly, I go out, I am completely fine with shooting a doe or 2. I'm pretty particular. If it's a good buck, I'll shoot it. If not, I have no problem putting does in the freezer. So as a general rule, I put 2 does in the freezer a year and get right back into predator hunting.
You do bring up an interesting point, though, Chris. You deer hunt to put venison in the freezer. Predator hunters, for the most part, don't eat what they shoot. This goes back a long time. I mean, listen, I was brought up, you don't shoot it unless you're going to eat it. I realize that that's not necessarily true, but tell me your rationale. How do you respond in particular to the antis who say, well, if you're not going to eat it, you shouldn't be shooting it?
Well, so there is a balance in the system with predators, and they're not an edible meat. And then during this time of year, there really isn't a lot of value there is no value to the furs. So what you're doing is you're reducing the population. And unfortunately, yes, it can be wasteful. It is wasteful. Some guys will take the skulls, for example. There is some value to the skulls, depending on who you talk to. You can have them hydro dipped. I know some local sporting goods stores that have some skulls on the shelf, and there's a certain benefit to having those, and they do sell. But as a general rule, yeah, the way I look at it is the buzzards have to eat too, and I'm strictly out there during the summertime reducing the population. And when I say reducing the population, it's really, really funny because I've been hunting the same areas for 6 or 7 years now, and my coyote numbers have not diminished. I'm still shooting the same number of coyotes every year out of the same fields and out of the same properties. So I guess you can say I'm maintaining the population. Even as much as I hunt and as many coyotes as I take out, coyotes are very active. They travel a lot. Not so much right now because of denning season. They're staying relatively local. But when you get into the fall season, they're traveling many, many miles a day. They can go a long way in a short amount of time. So we're just essentially maintaining the population. QDM guys, deer guys that really want to keep their deer population high, I get calls multiple times a year saying, "Hey, we got coyotes showing up on our scouting cameras. Can you come out and take care of them for us?" And sometimes I will just be showing up on a property and the landowner will send me a text saying, "Hey, one just showed up on a camera." And usually within 10 or 15 minutes, I can call that one out, and I've removed them from that property.
Hang tight, Chris. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I think the real benefit that people need to understand about predator hunting is this control of predators. If you don't control predators, imagine what would happen on these farms where Chris is taking out several coyotes a year if he wasn't there or somebody else to control that population. Think of the fawns that would get eaten. Mother Nature, right? The coyotes got to eat, but do they have to eat as many? Well, that's why we like the predator hunters. More with Chris Kreiner after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can also hear us north of the bridge. Let's see where we can go. Oh, let's go to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. Man, they're busy right now. This is the time of year to be putting in your food plots. Rich Kreiner, the guy at the helm of Killer Food Plots these days. In fact, I'm going to check with him. I'm going to see if I can make myself a note right now to get Rich back on the show here in the next week or two, if he has time to talk about putting in food plots. It's when you look at the trends across Michigan the last several years, one of the trends I see is this interest in food plotting. It's become very obvious, very clear, that the DNR has no interest in restoring or allowing baiting for whitetails in the Lower Peninsula anytime in the near future. So what's the option? Food plots. Whether you agree with the bait ban or not, it is what it is, and it is a reality. Well, putting in food plots is an option. Doing habitat improvement on your property is a great idea. Rich Kreiner of Killer Food Plots can help you out. Go to the website killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. You'll see what I mean. Get in touch with Rich and the folks there, and they can help you out. killerfoodplots.com. While you're bouncing around the internet, I would encourage you to check out my website. It's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My website is basically nothing more than a kind of a landing page for all of my social media outlets, but MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And then head on over to this website, C. Kreiner Media. And Kreiner is Kreiner. CKreinermedia.com. That's the website of my guest this hour. His name is Chris Kreiner. Chris has been around the outdoor media in Michigan for a long time, but the focus of our conversation today is summertime coyote hunting, predator control. And Chris, we've got to do this because one of the coyote's favorite foods this time of year is baby fawns, newborn fawns.
Absolutely. Yeah, we run into that quite often where we'll find fawns that have been torn apart by coyotes. And in all honesty, if you get a group of coyotes together, they have been known to take down adult deer as well. One story in particular is I was doing a coyote camp up in Pellston, Michigan this last winter. And the members of that camp, I take them out coyote hunting on their property. And all the members got shots at coyotes. Unfortunately, none of them connected, but it was a great hunt. And the very last night of the hunt, I took one of the other members out, and we were going to do a quick coyote stand right behind the cottage. And as we're walking out, I spot this coyote actually already coming out into the field. And that's why I also say it's always important that the moment you're stepping out of the vehicle or even the house, that hunt starts, because coyotes love the cover of darkness, and they could be anywhere at any time, not necessarily in the woods or in the swamps. They could be right out in the middle of the wide open field. So this particular hunt, we're walking out. We spot this coyote coming out of the wood line, and he's walking into the field. And I run thermal optics, so I was able to spot a little bit of an extra thermal signature on this coyote hanging in its mouth. And so it ended up, I didn't even have to turn on the collar. It walked about 175 yards away. We made the shot, dropped the coyote, and we walk up to it, and it had a chunk of deer leg in its mouth. And the funny thing about that is that deer leg was still warm. So it was a fresh kill.
Wow. Well, that if that points out, if you need some evidence why you should be predator hunting, there's a good example right there. Now, that was a wintertime hunt. How is hunting this time of year in the summertime? How is that different?
Well, you can go out in a T-shirt. Just make sure you bring your thermocell so you keep the mosquitoes off of you. But this time of year, I enjoy going out in the fields. The fields are clean. There's not a lot of stubble out in them. Right now, we're obviously getting in there before the crops get too tall. In another month, we're going to be restricted to hay fields, and then it'll be a month after that we'll get back into some wheat stubble fields. But from a calling perspective, my calling technique really doesn't change a whole lot. From during the winter, I do have a tendency to stick very closely to prey distress sounds, primarily rabbit, since it's one of the most abundant food sources available. Now, during this time of year, I will still use rabbit in distress, but I also will throw in some fawn distress, which can be very helpful. And I also toss in some vocalizations to try to entice coyotes that might be a little more territorial to come into the sound. The pressure, obviously, Michigan, from everything outdoor related in Michigan is very high pressure, and it's no different with predator hunting. Even though it's summertime, I know a number of guys that are still out there chasing predators throughout the summer. And so sometimes you just run into some pressured coyotes that maybe have heard that rabbit distress before and were shot at and missed, and so they're not as likely to come in the second time around.
Are they like most critters out there? I mean, once they have a close encounter with somebody, they learn from that, and they're likely to avoid that if they can in the future?
Personally, my experience is yes. However, there are a few other guys throughout the state that don't believe in pressured coyotes or educated coyotes. They feel a coyote is a coyote, and you're going to be able to eventually call them out one way or another. I've found that if I pressure an area too much and a new coyote hasn't moved in, the coyotes will sit in the woods and they'll vocalize, but sometimes you'll struggle to still get them to come out. And in those type of scenarios, though, I have found that if I move in on the coyotes, if I get closer, sometimes that's enough for them to go, yeah, I don't like the sound of another coyote coming into my turf. I'm going to come out and I'm going to investigate. And so I've been successful in that fashion as well.
You mentioned sounds and calling. For me, like one of my favorite things I do is turkey hunt, and that vocal interaction with the birds is what has me absolutely hooked. Is that part of the appeal of coyote hunting, the fact that you can call to them, they'll call back, and you can get that interaction? Is that a thing?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There is, walking into the tree stand back when I was a teenager and stuff like that, nothing made the hair stand up on the back of your neck like a group of coyotes 100 yards away from your tree stand lighting off. Now I've got a different feel for that. I walk out into a field and I get the coyotes vocalizing back to whatever sound I happen to play. And that gives me the sense of excitement, adrenaline, everything that you get when that white-tailed deer is coming in and you're going to get a shot. I get that same adrenaline and that same excitement just hearing the coyotes vocalize, because I'm like, okay, they are here. Now it's my job to entice them to come out. So and like you say, with turkey hunting, I find the same thing. You get turkeys gobbling, you move into position, and then you call them in. Coyote hunting, I look at is very similar.
I would think, too, one of the appeals, coming from your background as a hardcore whitetail hunter, you're not going to get that much interaction or that many shots at a deer in a season, but you're out there. I mean, you're going to take several coyotes, or at least have close encounters with several coyotes throughout the season. There's more action.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just, like I said earlier regarding the moment you step out of the truck, the coyote hunt starts. I went out with some buddies 2 nights ago. One doesn't have a ton of experience in the field. He's just kind of getting into it. And we get out of the truck and scan the fields with our thermal imagers, and we see a coyote that's only 250 yards away, and he's running right our direction. So we quickly get the rifles out and everything. And essentially, I just sat down on the ground and I lip squeaked. I got him into 100 yards with a lip squeak, and he was missed, which is and that is part of hunting. You're not going to make every single shot that you take, but the excitement level was still there, and it was a great hunt.
That thermal imaging, that must have changed things too. When you went from using a light to thermal imaging, that's got to be a whole different world.
Absolutely, yeah. So the year after I started with lights, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm having a great time. I can see myself investing more money into this, because the moment you jump into the thermal and night vision world, your expenses grow dramatically. So I jumped into the thermal scanner, which was at the time was a $1,600 scanner, and that was a base end scanner. That was the cheapest on the market at the time. And I jumped into a night vision scope. And I went from seeing 3 coyotes, or, shooting 3 coyotes the year before, to seeing and shooting at 40 coyotes.
Wow.
Unfortunately, during that time, the excitement level was so much so that I couldn't settle my crosshairs. So I wasn't making very many shots. I think I ended up with 20 coyotes that second year, and missing 20 coyotes. So not a great shot percentage, but I'll tell you, the excitement level was unbelievable. And then the year after that, I decided, you know what, because even with night vision, you're using an IR light, and I've had a handful of coyotes spot that IR. And when they spot that IR, they'll stop and they'll hesitate for a second, but usually it's just a second, and they'll spin around and they'll head out of Dodge. So that the third year, I jumped into complete thermal technology and went completely lights out in the field.
Chris, real quick before I have to let you go, is there, do you take people out on paid hunts? Are you a coyote hunting guide? If somebody goes to your website, ckreinermedia.com, then can they get in touch with you and go hunting with you or learn more about this? How does this work?
Usually, I've been asked that multiple times about getting into the guide side of things, and I've avoided it, and not for any particular reason except for I didn't want to turn this into a really big business.
Yep.
What I have turned it into is, as I mentioned earlier, the coyote camp, where I come into the camp, I show my gear, and then and most of the time, my gear is actually used for the hunt on their particular properties within their area. So it's like a weekend event.
Sure.
And other than that, I try to avoid the guiding. Obviously, I've taken many local guys out and showed them the ropes, and some of them jump right into it hardcore, and they're going out 2-3 times a week. Others do it just a couple times a month, and then they're like,
Gotcha.
I'm going to stick to the whitetail deer hunting.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Listen, always a pleasure. Sorry to cut you off. I am out of time.
No,
Chris Kreiner, ckreinermedia.com, ckreinermedia.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show all across our great state of Michigan, including in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why spend a bunch of money on different sets of hunting clothes just to get a different pattern? Why not buy one good quality set of hunting clothes and then snap on and zip on an outer skin, a shell with a different pattern? I mean, it takes less than a minute. You snap it on, zip it on, you're good to go. You can change from different seasons, different patterns, different uses, and not spend a bunch of money. The website is versaskins.com, versaskins.com. And if you're looking for big hunting clothes, the folks at Versaskins can take care of you in some big sizes as well. Versaskins.com. I want to turn our attention now to kind of what would we call it? A forestry management practice, a wildlife habitat management practice. Talking about clear cutting. Now, if you're not an expert on this, and I'm not, I might, drive up to an area and go, oh man, they came in, they clear cut this. Why did they do this? Well, Shelby Adams is a biologist for the DNR. She works in the Pigeon River country, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about this and why it's needed. Hey, Shelby, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Clear cutting. I would think for clear cutting, we'd be talking to a forestry person, yet we're talking with a wildlife biologist. So there must be a tie in here. What is the purpose of clear cutting? Why do you folks do it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a topic I was really excited to talk to you guys about today because, like you started out with, I think people, when they see it, can be a little alarmed or concerned. And clear cutting is so important, especially for wildlife. There are certain species that really benefit from clear cutting, and it's a forestry practice that's needed for some species to regenerate.
So how long does that land, that forest, take to regenerate in most cases?
Yeah, it depends on the stand that was cut. So aspen, for example, even the next year, you can see the fresh aspen shoots that are coming back up. They look sort of like brush at first, really, really thick. And then, in 2 years, 3 years, they're over your head, and they really expand from there and just become a fresh new forest.
So when you clear cut, do you then come in and replant, or do you let Mother Nature take care of that regrowth?
It depends, again, on the species. So aspen, the example that I gave earlier, that does regenerate on its own. But, for example, jack pine stands, which we manage really strongly for a species called Kirtland's warbler, which was recently removed from the endangered species list. We use clear cutting for that species, and we do replant. So we replant the jack pine in that case. I
didn't realize the Kirtland's warbler had reached that status.
Yes, recently. Yep. So they were recently removed from the endangered species list, and it was because of this really important habitat work that we've done. They are so dependent on very, very specific habitat conditions with the jack pine that this forestry practice is really what helped to remove them from that list.
So is clear cutting done as a practice across the state, or do we see it primarily in the North Country?
We see it a lot here, but it really is done across the state. It depends, again, on the timber type that you're trying to manage. When you've got aspen, or like we talked about some different pine species, clear cutting can be really important. But we've got another example is northern forest up here where we manage differently. So it really does depend on the timber type that you're looking at.
And clear cutting versus selective cutting, is it two different things, two different processes?
Yeah, absolutely. So some species of forest, when they're regenerating, can do well underneath shade, like northern forest, where I was talking about, where they're called shade-tolerant species, so they can regenerate well. There's still shade or larger trees around, where aspen is the perfect example for this, where if you have too much shade, it actually doesn't have that natural regeneration happens. It struggles more. So the most successful aspen regeneration really happens when you've got a completely clear, open sunlight.
Okay, a stupid question. When you come in and you clear cut an area, what happens to that timber? Does the DNR sell that off? Can the public come in and take that? How does that work?
So, we contract that out with timber companies that come in. They purchase the sales, and then really our foresters work directly with these loggers that come in. The decisions that are made about the harvest specs, for example, are made with Forestry Division, Wildlife Division, Fisheries Division, parks if trails go through it. So we're really there on the ground with them, helping to make sure that the decisions that were made with all of the different divisions with the DNR is what's done on the ground as well.
And real quick, is there a size limit on an area you can cut? I mean, you wouldn't want to clear cut 40 acres if for nothing more than PR. Is it limited to 5 acres or something like that at all, Shelby?
Oh, no, we do much bigger clear cuts in some areas than even you're suggesting, and a lot of times that really is connected with that wildlife piece as well. So you mentioned that I'm the wildlife biologist in the Pigeon River country, which I think a lot of people associate elk with as well. So when you're thinking about these clear cuts, and again, I'll refer back to aspen. If you only cut 5 acres of aspen, which elk absolutely love when that forest is fresh regenerating, they could come in there and eat all of it, and you wouldn't be regenerating the forest because of these animals. So larger clear cuts can actually be super important to help with that regeneration, especially when you're in a place where I work, such as elk country.
I appreciate that, Shelby. We'll get you back on sometime to talk about those magnificent elk. Shelby Adams of the DNR, Michigan.gov/DNR, answering some questions about clear cutting. We will answer this week's Ask Avery question after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN, and you can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. In fact, you can hear us on WIOS twice each weekend, so I do certainly appreciate that. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The Ask Avery segment has been around for a while now, so you probably know how it works, but let me give you a quick recap. This is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. It's your chance to ask me a question directly, or maybe use me to funnel a question to somebody that I might have access to that you might have a hard time getting to. Maybe somebody at MUCC, somebody in the DNR, something like that. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And that's exactly what Patrick Bertrand did. He sent me an email. He says, while the DNR Commission is considering changing firearm season to a Saturday, TV 9 and 10 reports that since 1996, hunter numbers have gone down by 2% each year. A Saturday opener could spark a renewed interest for some hunters. But wasn't the Michigan Youth Deer Hunt supposed to help in retaining numbers as well? Thank you. And he gives his phone number. I'm not sure, Patrick, if this is a question as much as an observation, but either way, it's a very interesting and very a valid thing to bring up. Let's break it down a little bit. Changing the opener to the first Saturday closest to November 15th is a concept that has been around for a long, long time. A lot of business people are in support of this because they say, hey, it's a lot easier for people to get away for a Saturday opener than it is a November 15th opener. I have mixed thoughts on this because I am blessed with a very flexible schedule, and because I can say no matter what day the opening day of the season falls on, I should be out there for work, I'm going to be out there regardless. So from my perspective, I like the tradition of having a November 15th opener. Now, I get it. If I worked in the shop or worked in the office for somebody else and I couldn't get out except for the Saturday, I might have completely different thoughts on it. So I can see both sides of this. This is something, again, that gets brought up all the time, every couple of years, and so far it has not passed. I don't know if it'll go through this time either. I started to make a comment about losing faith in all politicians, and the NRC is in many ways politicians. So, okay, TV 9 and 10 reports that since 1996, hunter numbers have gone down by 2% each year. I'm not doubting TV 9 and 10. I don't know if those are accurate numbers, but there's no doubt that the trend is that hunter numbers have gone down. No doubt about that at all. There was a spike During COVID, when people were off work, couldn't go into the shop, couldn't go into the office, they were finding something to do. Yes, hunter numbers did go up then. So then Patrick says, but wasn't the Michigan youth hunt, deer hunt, supposed to help in retaining hunters? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, the thought was that the youth hunt could get people, kids, young people involved in hunting at an early age. Statistically, has it proven to retain those hunters? I don't know. It's a question I've asked many times. But in my mind, the youth hunt is far more valuable in exposing kids to hunting, even if they don't stay on as hunters. Why is that, Avery? Well, yes, ideally, we would like to introduce these kids to hunting at an early age. They would get hooked on it, no pun intended, and remain as hunters throughout their entire lives. And there is no doubt that in some cases that happens. It doesn't happen with all of them. But I still think the youth hunt is a great idea because it exposes these kids to hunting. It gets them out hunting under ideal conditions, right? I get it. When it's still warm out, when the deer don't know they're being hunted, yada, yada, yada. But it gives them the experience of being a hunter at least for a few limited years. Then, later in life, when they are asked to vote on hunting-related issues, even if they're not currently a hunter, they have that experience, they have that background, they have that frame of reference so they can approach the issue and they can make a vote as a knowledgeable person who has been a hunter rather than somebody who is ignorant to the issue and is being guided strictly by the anti-hunting dollars that are always surrounding such topics. So, Patrick, I didn't really give you a firm answer. I'm not sure you were looking for an answer, but I appreciate the topics you're bringing up. The November 15th opener versus the Saturday opener. That is being debated. It will continue to be debated. It has been for a long time. I don't know if it'll ever change. I can see both sides of that. Hunter numbers, yeah, we need to increase hunter numbers, retain hunter numbers as much as we can, and if the youth hunt helps that in any particular way, I am more than in favor of that. If you have a question for me, the Ask Avery segment, send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. It can be a question you have for me or something you want me to pass along to others. Patrick, appreciate you doing that and appreciate the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our third hour, our final hour, we're heading to Lake Superior and Stannard Rock for some lake trout fishing with the folks at Kimar's Charters.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on Memorial Weekend, the unofficial kickoff of the summertime season. You know, I hope you have a chance to really get out and enjoy what is, for most people, a long weekend, maybe some barbecuing, maybe putting in some food plots, maybe some fishing. I would ask you to keep in mind the reason for this Memorial season is to honor Memorial Weekend, Memorial Day is to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice in service for our country. They went to some godforsaken place, lost their lives, so we can go fishing and, target practice or put in food plots or whatever this weekend. So I would ask you to keep that in mind. As I look back, I think I'm thinking back, my television career now in radio and broadcasting, and I've been real lucky, real fortunate. I've had a chance to go some pretty cool places. I've had a chance to meet some pretty cool people. One of the places here in Michigan that I think is the most fun I've ever had, and I've always called this the ultimate freshwater fishing experience. And this is going out to Stannard Rock, some 50 miles offshore in Lake Superior, and fishing for lake trout. I mean, I went out there, it was years and years ago now. I went out there, one of the guys I was working with, Rick Mixter, is a diver. And he went down below and he laid on the rock. He laid on his back on Stannard Rock on the reef out there, and he looked up at the boat and he watched us drop jigs down to the lake trout there. And there were so many lake trout swimming through there, they looked like a school of perch. I later found out that one of the guys who pioneered these trips out to Stannard Rock was a guy named Dave Kimar. I used to interview Dave on the radio show here every year, just about this time. Finally, a couple of years ago, and he invited me every year. He says, Mike, you got to come up and go fishing with us. You got to come up and go fishing with us. Didn't have the opportunity, but a couple of years ago, I ran into Dave at an outdoor show in Escanaba. And we finally had a chance to talk face-to-face and to meet face-to-face. And he was a guy I could look in the eye. I mean, he was a big guy. Well, I unfortunately found out a few months ago that Dave passed. I thought, well, I'm glad we had a chance to meet before that happened. But I thought, you know what, just because he's gone doesn't mean that I don't want to talk about this topic and don't want to talk about the business he left behind and the legacy he left behind. And the perfect person to do that is Dave's daughter, Sara Kimar, and she joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Sara, welcome to the show. What a pleasure it is to talk with you. How are you?
Oh, it's a pleasure to hear your voice, Mike. I always listen to my dad's radio interviews with you, and I really enjoyed the dynamic the two of you had together.
Well, he loved to fish. I loved to fish. We had that in common, so we could shoot the breeze for a long time. There's no doubt about that.
I think we both like to shoot the breeze, too.
Well, that, too. That's probably one of the reasons why he was a successful charter captain and one of the reasons why I've been able to stick by, to get by on radio for so long. It just, we had a lot in common, and I just thought he was a great guy. And first of all, I'm really sorry for your loss. It was a shock for me to hear that. So my prayers are still with you and your family.
I appreciate that a lot. You did get the honor of meeting my dad, and he was quite a character. He was notorious for his size 18 shoes. So I've been telling people that his shoes are hard to fill, both literally and figuratively. But I know he would want us to carry on. Fishing was his passion and his legacy, so we're going to keep the trips going. The only reason why we're not at the Rock today is because of the bad weather we're having.
Well, I think it's so cool that he literally was the guy who helped pioneer these trips out to Stannard Rock. He was one of the first guys to run out there, and when he started it, it was a hell of an adventure, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it was pretty scary. Most boats didn't have the fuel capacity to run out there. My dad's first time chartering out there was, I think, 76. And he loved going out there. I mean, he fished there last year, so he fished there for a really long time.
And you guys, now the resort goes on, the charter business goes on. Tell me a little bit about the resort, because you've got a beautiful piece of heaven right there on the shore of Lake Superior, don't you?
Sure, and this is a legacy my father inherited from his own father. So his father built the resort in the 1940s, and the resort and fishing was a combination. Then in the 1950s, we had an issue with sea lamprey, and so fishing really just kind of shut down for I think approximately 10 years. In that time, my grandfather passed. And my dad took over the resort when he was pretty young, and then he brought back the fishing, and he kind of just learned to do it from the local fishermen.
So, boy, you're working on third generation there now at the resort?
Third generation, and my nephews have helped us too, so we're really into kind of the fourth generation now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Are you a captain, Sara? Do you fish too?
You know, I never did go through and get the certification. I have made it on the boat, so I've fished with a lot of our guides, and they all have a unique style. So I've learned a lot by fishing with a lot of different people. But man, to go out on the Gitche Gumi, it's quite an experience, especially to go to the rock.
I'm glad you bring up the word experience, because that was my next question for you. What is that experience like? I mean, you guys there at Kimar's, I mean, you've done it dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, whatever the number is, but you take people out there who have never done that. What do they say that experience is like?
Well, you know, for a lot of people, it's like a bucket list thing to do that actually ends up turning into an annual thing because they love it so much. But just the journey out there is pretty epic, right? You're talking about a 2-hour plus journey from our location, like you said, 50 miles offshore, about 24 miles from the nearest shoreline. So just getting out there is quite a feat. But to get out there and see that reef and to see fish swimming around you and then a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, it's just awe-inspiring.
So the rock itself, is it one big rock, or is it a series of reefs that we just call Stannard Rock?
Well, there is one big rock there, and that's Captain Stannard was the one who I guess found the rock there, and so they put the lighthouse there to inform the captains in the shipping lanes there that there's a rock there and not to hit it.
So when in the early days when your dad used to go out there, I mean, no GPS on a foggy day, there was it was something not a lot of people would have had the guts to do.
Yeah, my dad was a fearless man. That's all I can really say. He was just kind of one of those people who looked at something and said, "Challenge accepted."
Well, and look at what he accomplished to keep your granddad's place open, now for you guys to keep it open. I think it's an absolutely great story. What about the fishing now, Sara? When you get out there, is it a trolling fishery, or is it dropping jigs overboard, or how do you guys fish out there?
Well, you know, there's a 18-foot reef there, and that's kind of the honey hole where people like to fish the best. The fish move into the shallows there in about mid-July, and so you can cast. Up until that time, we'll primarily jig. But to be honest with you, Mike, the fishery out there has changed in about the last 5 years, and they have been put in a situation where they're forced to troll. A lot of people don't like to do that because they want to fish light tackle, but the fishing just has changed. My dad had two theories about that. Firstly, he thought it was the long-term impacts of the 5-fish limit we have for trout up here, and he was pretty adamant about communicating a change about that. But secondly, you know, with all the technology we have, there are a lot more guys that feel comfortable going out there with smaller boats. And so you see a lot more smaller boats out there, and he thought that kind of spooked the fish a little bit.
You talk about 5-fish limit. I think what you're saying is that's important, because this is a natural fishery. These fish aren't stocked at all, right?
That's absolutely correct.
We're talking with Sara Kimar of Kimar's Charters. Is the website for the resort also kimarscharters.com, Sara?
Well, we've got two websites, kimarscharters.com and then kimarsresort.com for the cabins, but they are both linked to one another. kimarsresort.com. We've got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show, Sara. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about your family legacy, the history out there, and also the resort, and maybe how people can come up and take advantage of what you have to offer this summer. Can you give me a few more minutes? That sounds great. Thanks for your time.
I would appreciate that. Sara Kimar of Kimar's Charters and Kimar's Resort. Again, the website's kimarscharters.com and kimarsresort.com. And Kimar is Kimar. Oh, I had the pleasure of meeting Sara's dad, Dave. Talked to him many, many times. Finally had the pleasure of meeting him, and he was honestly, you talk about people being larger than life. This guy, Dave Kimar, was larger than life, and he leaves a tremendous legacy. And I would encourage you to head on up to Kimar's Resort and check it out. So we will take that break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, where we'll talk more with Sara after that break. Also coming up in this hour, you know we're going to check in with my good friend, wild game chef extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Miner. I had the pleasure of doing an event with Dave last weekend at the American Legion Hall in Sanford. Dave and his wife, Terry, cooked up a wonderful dinner as always. We had a lot of fun there. Always good to get together with my friend Dave, and I look forward to wrapping up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. That's all coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Whack 'em and Plack 'em, a very cool concept, a Michigan-based family-owned company. You know I love that. Jason has come up with a very cool and unique way to show off your trophies. You can use them with shoulder mounts, European mounts, even fish. For details, check out the website, nontypicalinnovations.com. You'll see what I mean, nontypicalinnovations.com. Michigan-based, Whack 'em and Plack 'em. You could use them for a big Lake Superior lake trout. Maybe a lake trout you catch off Stannard Rock. And it's not Standard Rock, it's Stannard Rock. That's a mistake some people make. It's not a big deal, just something to be aware of. Sara Kimar is very much aware of Stannard Rock. Her family has made a living taking customers out to the rock on fishing, freshwater fishing adventures for years and years and years. And she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. So, Sara, what is the charter business look like now? Your dad's not there, but he was pretty much retired anyway. Do you still have captains running out to the rock these days?
Well, he was not retired, Mike. He worked till the day he died. He was actually buying tackle the day that he died.
Oh, my gosh.
He even was still going out to the rock last year at the age of 77.
I should have known.
He was a hardworking man, and, he inspired me in that way. And I know he'd want us to carry on, so we still have the charters and the resort operating. Our first Stannard Rock trip was supposed to be today, but the weather's not favorable for it, and we're going to try again on Saturday.
So what kind of weather are you looking for? I mean, you're rarely going to get a dead calm day. Is that what you need to make that run out there?
Not necessarily. We've got boats that can make a run in a little bit of weather. I mean, anything above 1 to 2 is just not going to be comfortable for the passengers. But sometimes the weather can turn even when you're out there. So you might have a calm ride out, and your ride back could be very different.
Well, and that's one big thing you have going for you these days that your dad didn't have in the early days. You've got better electronics, better technology, better weather reports. There had to be days when he got out there and Mother Nature just flipped a switch and he had to come back right back into him. It must have been, well, again, I'll use the term, an adventure.
It really was. I had the pleasure of even going inside the lighthouse one time, and it's pretty epic in there as well. Right now, the lighthouse is owned by the Superior Watershed in Marquette, and they're actually starting a campaign to restore the lighthouse for its historical significance. So if anyone would like to do that, you can go to standardrock.org. And make a donation. If you make a donation of $100 or more, you actually get your name on the lighthouse. So
that's
you can be a part of that history.
So that's not still a working lighthouse? It's not still lit, is it?
It is still a working lighthouse. It's all automated now. After that fire in the 1960s, they no longer manned it. You can actually see the original lens in the Maritime Museum in Marquette. But the reason why I was able to go out there is because they're doing a lot of climate research out there, both U.S. and Canadian scientists. So we actually were their transport out there, and so we were able to go in the lighthouse with them.
So what were the logistics of that? You pulled up next to it, you tied off, and then how did you actually get up into the lighthouse? Is there a stairway, an old ladder there or something? There's
a ladder, yeah, and it's a little sketchy, but it can be done. My dad actually took out some YouTubers last year as well. So if you're interested in seeing what the lighthouse looks on the inside, you can find that on YouTube. The name of the guys who went there are JSTU, I believe.
Oh, I will look for that because that sounds really cool. And I've heard the stories, and I think I heard them from your dad, about how they built this thing. Can you imagine back in the day what it was like to build this thing on a rock in the middle of Lake Superior? What a feat that was.
Yeah, I can't even fathom it. The man who's supposed to be our client who's supposed to be at the rock right now is actually a structural engineer, and he and I were just discussing that this morning. You know, it's like building the pyramids or something.
Mm-hmm. So aside from running out to Stannard Rock, you guys also offer fishing trips a little closer to shore, right?
We sure do. And because the fishery at the Rock has changed, even though it's an epic experience just to go out there, some of our regular clients have shifted over to fish at the Big Reef. That seems to be a little bit of a better fishery these days, and that's where they're getting the bigger fish. Munising just had their fishing tournament, and all the winners caught their big fish at the Big Reef this year.
So how far of a run is that from your place?
Just under 30 miles, so it's a little less expensive, and it's a little quicker ride.
That's
trolling.
That's still a heck of a trip, though. 30 miles, and then that is a trolling fishery, you say there.
Yeah, some people really want to fish with the light tackle. We have tried some jigging at the reef with a little bit of success. Of course, it's not the same as the Rock, but you know, anytime you're fishing on the lake is a good day.
Amen to that. The fishing on the closer reef, then, is that still all lake trout? Do you see any salmon there at all?
You know, Mike, the only time we really get salmon is in the spring. So the salmon, we had coho salmon running till about now, and then it's going to die off. I think the fish tend to head more toward Canada in the warmer months. I'm not entirely sure where they go, to be honest with you.
But they leave you, right? You know that part.
They leave us, yeah. We don't know how to catch them.
So tell me about the resort then. Your facilities, your place is right on the water?
Yeah, right on the water. I'm actually in a cabin right now looking out at the lake. We have 7 little cabins. 6 of them were built by my grandparents, and they're still here today.
So where do you dock the boats? Do you have a dock that goes out in it? Do you have a lagoon or a marina dug at the place? What are the logistics there?
Yeah, we're in a little bay here called Shelter Bay. It used to be owned by Cleveland Cliffs, and this was actually kind of always a fishing bay. It's the perfect location. So we have 2 docks, and we keep our boats right here in the bay, and if we get any weather, we just moor the boats out in the bay.
What's it like to stand there in that cabin right now, look out over the big water, and think about your family's history and how much blood, sweat, and tears have gone into making this happen and continuing that? It's got to be rewarding.
It's probably the greatest privilege of my life, Mike. To honor my dad, I think is the least I could do, because he was such a great influence on the person I became. And I'm so happy that at Christmas this year, he said, I didn't get anybody anything. And, you know, my mom always bought the gifts anyways. But I looked at my dad and I put my arms out and I said, look at this place, Dad. You've given us this. What greater gift could there be?
Well, to continue that tradition and the family tradition and to open up your family tradition to other families so they can come and visit and have that experience and have that adventure, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. I mean, the UP is an amazing place. I don't know if you've ever heard of these Uper lights, but I help our customers here find those Uper lights, and just to be on the water, it's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. I used to have a shirt when I was a kid that said God's area code is 906, which is the area code of the whole UP.
Where do your clients, your customers come from? Are they Michigan people or beyond?
You know, we get a lot of Michigan and Ohio people and Wisconsin, but we've had people from all over the world. We did have this gentleman from Israel stay with us once, and he left us a note that said, this is the closest to heaven I've ever been.
Well, it's a great story. I'm so glad that you and others are continuing this tradition, keeping the family history, the family legacy alive, and sharing it with other people. Just what a great story. And Sara, I appreciate you jumping on the phone line with me this morning. It means a lot to me as well.
Well, I thank you so much for thinking of us and reaching out, and it's always a pleasure to speak to you and hear your voice.
So you're going to be my contact now in the future, aren't you? You're going to get more phone calls from me, I can tell.
Yeah, and I'm going to hold you to that that fishing at the rock. We're going to make you do it.
Oh, you won't have to make me very hard. I will look forward to that. Sara, a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Take care.
All right. Sara Kimar of Kimar's Charters and Kimar's Resort. Two different websites here. KimarsCharters.com. That's KimarsCharters.com. If you go to that website, you can see who the captains are that are running these days. If you go to KimarsResort.com, you can learn more about the resort. But think about this. A third generation, I'm working on fourth now, family operation. If you are in business, if you've ever owned your own business or run a small business, you know how challenging that can be, how tough that can be. To have it be a family operation, the dynamics there can sometimes make it, we'll say, a little bit more interesting as well. And then you put in the factor of Mother Nature. If you're in a manufacturing business, yes, you have economic situations, you have equipment problems, right? But when you throw in the unknown of Mother Nature, like, for example, today, they were supposed to have a trip out on Stannard Rock today. They call it the Rock. But Mother Nature said no. No, we don't want you going to the Rock today, so you don't go to the Rock today. I think it's just the Kimar family, and, the more I get to know about them and read about them, it's a very cool piece of UP history. Again, KimarsCharters.com and KimarsResort.com. I call it the ultimate freshwater fishing adventure. And Sara says, well, if you don't want to go out to the Rock, you go out to the Big Reef. Well, that's a 30-mile run, too. I mean, that's quite an adventure as well. I went out there one time fishing. I told you Rick Mixter was with me, a partner of mine at the time, diving. He dove down there. He laid on the rock on his back and watched the fish come through. Watch this. This is all on video. I don't know where the video is now. I have been fortunate in finding a lot of the old cool video that I thought was lost. For example, the interview with Fred Bear and some things like that. I've been able to find them, but there are still things like that Stannard Rock trip that are in the back of my mind. I can see them in my mind, but I can't quite put my hands on the video, where the video is. Maybe someday when I retire, I'll take the time to look through all those archives and find all that cool stuff. Maybe sometime, though, when I eventually do retire, I will care less about it. That's probably what it'll be. I'll probably care less, and they'll just be lost forever. But they'll be in my mind. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. A few more things I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine show in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. You can hear us in Manistee on WTIQ. That's 1480 AM, 1490 AM, and 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW, News Radio 790 and 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm here with Jonathan Dent. John, doing a great job. I do certainly appreciate it. And I commandeer this corner of the building for 3 hours each week to record the Outdoor Magazine radio show, and I certainly do appreciate you being along with us. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. I talk about the folks from Reader a lot because I think it's a great option for you if you want to have great-looking property, but you don't want to put a lot of time into it yourself. Let the folks from Reader do it. From maintenance... Well, let's start at the beginning. From planning to design to construction to maintenance. Reader can take care of it all. And they've worked on several projects in my house. In fact, we have another one in the works planned right now, and I'm looking forward to it. But Hardworking crews, very reliable. When they say they're going to be there, they are there. End of discussion. They get the job done. They work hard. A Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. Check out the website, reederlandscaping.com. That's reederlandscaping.com. Let's talk about fawns for a minute. White-tailed fawns. If you are in the woods right now or spending any time in the woods, there's a good chance you will see a fawn. It doesn't have to be in the woods. You could be walking along the edge of a field. You'd be walking in a county park. You might see a newborn fawn. This is the fawning period. The whitetail does are dropping their baby deer called fawns. Everybody knows that. And everybody knows how cute these things are. I think it's one of the most, well, I hate to, adorable. Can I use that without, okay, beautiful sights in the outdoors, in Mother Nature, to find a newborn baby fawn that is still in the stage of life where they're hiding. That's what they do. They sit still and they hide. And if you find one all curled up in a bed and the sunlight is coming through on those things, and it's beautiful. And if you look at it real close, those spots on the back of a fawn's back are part of a natural camouflage. They mimic the dappled sunlight that comes through the leaves. That's why they blend in so well. And you're likely not even to see them until they get up and run. And they won't do that for a couple of weeks. It's ingrained in them, Mother Nature, the does, whatever. They know that they just sit there and they be quiet and they don't move. And that's what protects them from predators. So when you find these fawns, keep this in mind. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is Mother Nature doing her thing. The fawn is not abandoned. Just because you don't see a doe around there, because you don't see a doe standing next to it, doesn't mean that fawn has been abandoned. That's the way Mother Nature works. Until they can get up and run with the doe, the female deer, the mom, the doe, stashes that fawn and she leaves it for hours at a time. And she'll come back a couple times throughout the day, 3 times throughout the day, whatever, to feed the fawn. It's not abandoned. Don't pick up a fawn. And, I had to. But Avery, I had to. It was so beautiful, and I know it was abandoned, and it was just there, and the mom was dead somewhere. She got hit by a car or whatever, so I know it was up to me. I had to pick that fawn up to save its life. No. For several reasons. Number one, it's illegal. To pick up a fawn is illegal. Even if, this gets me in trouble sometimes, but it doesn't stop me from saying it. Even if you know for a fact that fawn is abandoned. And the only way you're going to know that is if maybe a doe gets hit, and as she's laying there on the side of the road dying, she gives birth to the fawn. Okay, you know at that point that fawn is an orphan. Does it really do that wild animal any good for you to pick that fawn up? For one thing, you can't take it home. That's illegal. You could take it to a rehabilitator. But what does that do? You've got an animal that was born to be a wild critter, part of the natural world, and us as humans getting involved in the process to try to save the animal, and then it grows into something that's not a wild animal anymore. Did we really help that critter? As cruel and inhumane as it might sound, maybe it's better off for the whole process even if, and I say if because it rarely happens, if that fawn is truly abandoned, let it sit there and let Mother Nature take her role. Coyotes got to eat. Buzzards have to eat. It sounds cruel, but that is Mother Nature. When I lived on the farm, when I was a kid, people picked up fawns. They'd bring them into the barn and they'd nurse them, and they'd grow up, and then they would become pets. Deer are not supposed to be pets. Deer are supposed to be wild animals. Don't pick up a fawn. Admire it, take a picture of it, and back away. Let Mother Nature be Mother Nature, and we will be people. Don't pick up a fawn. I don't know how much more clear I can be. But that's just me. You do what you want, but that's my advice. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us this week here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Show. My name is Mike Avery, wishing you a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Hope you get a chance to get outdoors, have some fun, maybe cook a little something up on the grill. Of course, when I think of cooking, I think of wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, a good friend of mine, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine Show. And as always, he helps us wrap up each week's show, and he's with us once again. David, welcome back. It was so nice to see you and Terry and the crew at that event last weekend in Sanford. You did a great job, buddy.
Boy, they had a good time, those people. Our neighbor from Standish, he won a gun and a great big, real nice flashlight. He was a happy camper. I think everybody had a really good time there, Mike.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's always good to get together for a good cause. And Dave, you've done so many dinners and so many charities and fundraisers over the year. I can't even imagine how much you've raised for different groups around this area over the years.
Boy, oh boy, I don't think of it that way. Is how much I raise.
I know.
I want to be involved and take care of these people that are putting their trust in me.
Well, and I know you don't look at it that way, but I think you should. I think you should get some credit for that. I also think you should give us a good recipe right now to send us out the door.
I've got a recipe we did for the TV show back in the 90s. I dug it out. So it's a rainbow trout with mushroom and basil stuffing. And this time of the year, morels would be just excellent. So you need 4 trout, about 12, 13-inch fish would be perfect. That's a nice amount of meat for the people. And this is for 4 portions. And you want to bone it from the inside out with your fillet knife. Start, and you work the rib bones out, and you take your fingers and your thumb and you move along the backbone and you pop that whole rib cage right out. So then you need about 3 cups of breadcrumbs diced up fine, about a cup of mushrooms. I think morels diced up would be just perfect with this. The juice of a lime, about a 1/4 cup of scallions sliced nice and thin, a couple of beaten up eggs, about a 1/4 cup of green peppers diced pretty fine, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic diced up fine, a little bit of parsley, maybe a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of parsley chopped, milk. You're going to use milk to moisten, or beer might be really good in this too. I haven't tried it, but I was thinking as I was looking this recipe up, beer would be good to moisten it with. 8 to 10 fresh basil leaves diced up fine, or a 1/2 teaspoon of dried. Olive oil to saute, flour to dredge, black pepper, and you're going to grate that black pepper on the inside of that fish. When you open it up, before you stuff this, that's what you want to do. You might even want a little bit of salt, but I don't use salt in my diet. So with a small amount of olive oil, saute the green peppers and the garlic and the scallions, then add the mushrooms. You only want to cook it for 2 to 3 minutes because you're going to bake this for about 15 to 20 minutes, so they'll finish cooking. Add the breadcrumbs, squeeze in the lime juice, add the beaten up eggs, and if you need to, you can moisten it with milk and or beer. A little bit of salt and pepper, maybe. Taste it. If it's to your liking, then you're going to pack this fish lightly. You're going to take the gills out, and so you can put stuffing in there all the way to the back. Dredge it lightly in flour, and in a nice hot frying pan, you're going to brown fish on both sides. Take that out and put it in an oven-proof casserole, because most people aren't going to have a pan big enough to put 4 trout in. But they'll have an oven-proof casserole. And you're going to bake this little bit of water in the bottom, and you can actually tin it lightly. You don't want to cover it completely. And it's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes to get up to 180 degrees on the inside of the fish. Or you can just lift it up, and if the fish looks opaque instead of flesh-colored with a fork, then you're definitely done, and it's nice and hot in the middle. And while this is going on, you can take a cup of dry white wine, half a stick of butter, a teaspoon of parsley that was chopped up fine, the juice of a lemon or a lime. Reduce that down over a nice hot, so it's nice, thick, and creamy. So what you're going to do is you're going to put a pool of this sauce on the plate, set the fish on it. Take a dinner fork, the kind like you eat with, and you're going to start it at the head, and you're going to roll it back. You're going to put one tine underneath the skin, and then roll that back, and you'd be surprised. The skin will just roll off. You're going to leave the bottom skin on, but take that top skin off, and it gives for great eye appeal and makes for nice dining. This is a killer dish. I love doing this.
It is. I remember this. And real quick, you mentioned 180 degrees. Does it just have to reach that temperature, or does it have to be at that temperature for a certain amount of time before that fish is done?
Just basically reach there.
Okay.
Make sure the eggs are cooked and the fish is cooked. It doesn't have to be all that hot, but that's a good temperature to get it at to make sure everything is done and you're in the safe zone, so to speak.
Perfect. David, we'll talk with you next week. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason for me to do the show, and then I don't know what I would do. Hey, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. The website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Check me out on social media as well. And don't forget, every Wednesday morning at 8:45, I do a Behind the Mic segment live on my social media outlets. And, of course, Wednesday Night Live, 7 o'clock on social media. Love to see you there. My name is Mike Avery, and I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.